Hey everyone, we are working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Myles Garrett definitely is feeling the type of way about the Browns. Another workout session, he was not in the building, but he made his way to a concert. Now, this concert got him into some hot water about an hour ago. But I'm telling you right now, people was in Cleveland saying that it looked like to me and to them that Myles Garrett could be boycotting this team over the Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders battle. Now, Myles Garrett has been vocal this whole offseason, how he believes in Shedeur Sanders, how he wants Shedeur Sanders to be the quarterback. Now, for whatever reason, he making it his business to speak with his actions. And his actions to me lets me know there is something definitely going on within the Cleveland Browns locker room that we have to pay attention to.
Myles Garrett can show up for 65,000 people at a Morgan Wallen concert. He can fly to Los Angeles for a movie premiere. He can sit courtside at a Cleveland Cavaliers playoff game. What he apparently cannot do, what he has made a very deliberate choice not to do, is walk into the Cleveland Browns facility and shake hands with his new head coach. And family, I need you to understand something before we go any further. When the best defensive player on your roster, the reigning defensive player of the year, a man who has given 9 years of everything he has to that franchise, when that man is willing to forfeit $1 million workout bonus just to stay away from the building, that is not nothing. That is a message. And today, we are going to talk about what that message means, who it is directed at, and how it connects to everything burning inside the Cleveland Browns organization right now. Welcome back to Dre Reports. I'm your host, Dre Fiver, and today we are going all the way in on one of the most layered, most underreported, most revealing storylines of the entire 2026. Because what is happening with Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns right now is not a simple star player skips voluntary workout story. That is the surface. The surface is a story about a superstar who publicly backed Shedeur Sanders as his quarterback. Who has spoken about this young man with more enthusiasm and more specificity than any other voice in that organization? And who is now making his displeasure with the direction of this franchise known in the most powerful way available to him, with his physical absence? So let's build this out from the foundation. Let's give you every piece of evidence. Let's give you the context that the surface-level takes are missing. And let's have an honest conversation about what all of this means for Shedeur Sanders and for the future of a franchise at a genuine crossroads. Start here. This is not new behavior from Myles Garrett. As multiple reporters covering the Browns confirmed at the start of the offseason program, Garrett skipping the early voluntary sessions is something he has done in previous years. Most top-tier veterans do it. The offseason program is not mandatory. A player at Garrett's level, a man who does not need extra conditioning sessions and who has earned the right to manage his own body on his own schedule, skipping voluntary Phase 1 activities is not by itself a red flag. Todd Monken said it himself when reporters started pushing him on the absence. He said it plainly. This is voluntary. Myles will be ready. We are making a big deal out of nothing. And on the surface, Monken is not wrong. It happens every single year across the entire league. But here is where this particular absence stops being routine and starts being something much more significant. When the Browns' voluntary veteran minicamp ran from April 21st through April 23rd, a special 3-day session granted by the NFL as a courtesy for teams with new head coaches, Myles Garrett was still not in the building. And not just not in the building, as confirmed by reporting from multiple outlets, Monken himself admitted on record that he had not spoken to Garrett in person since being named head coach at the end of January. 3 months, a new head coach, a franchise cornerstone, and the two had only exchanged text messages. Monken addressed it directly with reporters saying, "Myles and I have communicated by text, and I have not spoken to him in person." He added that he could not even confirm whether Garrett had met with the new defensive coordinator. That is not a veteran managing his body during voluntary workouts. That is a star player keeping deliberate distance from an organization he has questions about. Now let's talk about the financial reality, because this is where the "he is just being a veteran" explanation completely falls apart. As reported by Pro Football Talk and confirmed by multiple outlets, Myles Garrett has a $1 million workout bonus written into his contract for 2026. To earn that bonus, he must attend at least 84.3% of all offseason sessions, participate in all minicamps and all OTA days, and report on time to training camp. By skipping the voluntary minicamp and the early phases of the offseason program, Garrett has very likely already forfeited that $1 million. Now, on a $160 million deal, $1 million is a relatively minor figure. But a man at Myles Garrett's level of financial intelligence and professionalism does not accidentally leave $1 million on the table. He does not forget about a workout bonus. He knows exactly what his contract says. He has agents and advisors who know exactly what his contract says. The decision to skip those sessions, to accept the financial penalty, was a deliberate, eyes-open choice. And when a man of Garrett's stature makes a deliberate choice to forfeit $1 million rather than show up to voluntary workouts, he is sending a signal that the distance he is keeping from this organization is worth more than the money. Dre's personal opinion? I think Myles Garrett is not hiding what he thinks. I think he has been broadcasting it clearly for months for anyone willing to actually pay attention. Back in February, Garrett was a guest on Micah Parsons' podcast. Parsons asked him directly about the quarterback room and where Shedeur Sanders stands. And what Garrett said was unambiguous. He said Shedeur was the last guy on the field. He said the team is going to give him a real shot to prove he is the guy. And he made it clear, in a way that left very little room for interpretation, that Shedeur Sanders was his quarterback. Not Watson, not Gabriel, Shedeur. He said it with conviction. He said it publicly. He put his name and his reputation behind it. And then, this offseason, the narrative started shifting. Watson getting the majority of practice reps. Cleveland media reporting Watson has the edge. The organization sending signals, intentionally or not, that the veteran with the dead contract might reclaim a starting role over the young quarterback that its own franchise cornerstone had publicly anointed as the guy. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, Myles Garrett started keeping his distance. Now, I want to bring in something from the transcript that I think is genuinely important and that gives this story even more texture, because somebody in the source material made an observation that deserves to be examined carefully. They said Myles Garrett is not in the building but made his way to a concert, and they questioned whether that absence, combined with his very public support of Shedeur Sanders, represents something larger than a routine veteran skipping voluntary workouts. And I want to be honest with you, because this is where we have to separate what we know from what we are reading between the lines. What we know is factual and confirmed. Myles Garrett skipped the early offseason program. Myles Garrett skipped voluntary minicamp. Myles Garrett has not met with his new head coach in person since January. Myles Garrett is forfeiting $1 million bonus to maintain that distance. And Myles Garrett has been the most prominent voice on the Cleveland Browns roster, publicly expressing support and belief in Shedeur Sanders. As the franchise quarterback, all of that is documented. All of that is on record. What we do not know, what nobody outside of Myles Garrett's inner circle knows, is exactly what is driving the absence. Is it the quarterback situation specifically? Is it unresolved frustration over the defensive coordinator he lobbied for, Jim Schwartz, being passed over in favor of Todd Monken and then resigning? Is it the contract restructuring that happened in late March, which conveniently reduced the dead cap cost of a potential trade and had the entire football world asking whether Cleveland was quietly opening the door to move its franchise player? Is it all of those things combined? We do not have the answer to that question with certainty. But the pattern, the totality of everything that Myles Garrett has said and done and declined to do this offseason, paints a picture of a superstar who is deeply unsatisfied with something happening inside the Cleveland Browns organization. And the timing of that dissatisfaction, overlapping perfectly with the Watson over Sanders narrative, is not a coincidence that I am willing to dismiss. Here is what I will say with confidence. The contract restructuring alone was significant. As reported by multiple football finance analysts, the Browns moved the option exercise deadline on Garrett's contract from its original March date all the way to 7 days before the regular season begins in September. That move, while the front office claimed had nothing to do with trade possibilities, immediately and dramatically reduced the financial barrier to trading Cleveland's best player. Before the restructure, the dead cap cost of a Garrett trade would have been so enormous that it was essentially off the table. After the restructure, while still expensive, a trade became genuinely feasible. General Manager Andrew Berry went on record to deny trade intentions, saying the Browns would not need to make a contract adjustment if they wanted to trade Garrett. But the football world did not buy it. And with every additional week that Garrett keeps his distance from Berea, the whispers get louder. Now let me bring in the other dimension of this story that the source material raised, because it is generating its own controversy, and I think it deserves to be handled with honesty and context. Myles Garrett walked out with Morgan Wallen at Wallen's concert stop in Cleveland during last summer's tour. Wallen is a massive country music star who faced significant criticism in 2021 after a video surfaced of him using a racial slur. The controversy around that incident followed him for years, and when athletes choose to publicly appear with Wallen on his concert stages, as Garrett, Patrick Mahomes, Marshawn Lynch, Connor McDavid, and others have done, It generates conversation on social media about what those appearances mean. Now, Dre is going to be direct with you about this, because this is a topic that deserves clarity rather than noise. Myles Garrett walking out with Morgan Wallen at a concert in his home city is not the same thing as endorsing the worst thing Wallen ever said. Athletes attending concerts, walking out with artists, enjoying live entertainment, that is not a political statement. That is a person going to a show. And the fact that multiple black athletes, including Marshawn Lynch, have made the same choice without generating the same volume of backlash that certain other celebrities faced tells you something important about the selective and often inconsistent way that outrage gets applied in sports. Media. Patrick Mahomes has done it. Marshawn Lynch has done it. Myles Garrett has done it. And all three of those men are capable of making their own decisions about which public events they choose to attend without needing anyone on the internet to adjudicate those choices for them. Dre's personal opinion on this whole dimension of the story? The Morgan Wallen concert appearance is a distraction from the real story. It is the kind of content that generates clicks and heat but produces zero actual insight into what is happening with the Cleveland Browns organization. The real story, the one that matters for football, is that Myles Garrett, the best player on the Cleveland Browns roster, publicly said Shedeur Sanders is the guy. He vouched for him by name, with specificity, in front of a national audience on a major platform. He talked about watching Shedeur show up early to coaches' offices, grinding through film, asking questions, building his game in the way that great quarterbacks do. He said, and I want you to hear this clearly, that almost every morning you could see Shedeur in a coach's office talking through plays and schemes, making sure he would be ready when his moment came. That is the endorsement of a teammate who has been watching this young man earn it every single day. That is not a political statement. That is a football player vouching for another football player based on what he has personally witnessed. Now let's bring in something that adds another layer of legitimacy to the entire conversation about whether the Cleveland Browns locker room is actually behind Shedeur Sanders. Because it is not just Myles Garrett. Defensive tackle Maliek Collins, a veteran presence on that defensive line, was asked about the quarterback room and gave a response that tells you everything about the internal temperature of this roster. Collins said he likes Shedeur's swag. He said he likes the confidence that Shedeur plays with. He said he thinks Shedeur is super talented. And while he was careful not to pick a side explicitly, as you would expect from a teammate in a live competition situation, the warmth and the specificity with which Collins talked about Shedeur versus how he talked about Watson was noticeable. Watson got, he's quiet but he's still a baller. Shedeur got genuine enthusiasm about his talent, his swag, and his confidence. These are veterans on the defensive side of the ball. They are the ones in that locker room every day. They are the ones who see Shedeur in those coaches' offices. They are the ones who understand what kind of player this franchise needs to build around. And the read from inside that locker room is not ambiguous. Now let me zoom out and give you the full picture of where everything stands heading into OTAs, because there are multiple moving pieces in this story, and I want to make sure you have the complete context. OTA offseason workouts are scheduled for May 19th through the 21st, May 26th through the 28th, and June 2nd through the 5th. Mandatory minicamp runs June 9th through the 11th. That mandatory minicamp is the one where Myles Garrett is contractually obligated to appear. That is the session that will generate the most significant headlines of the entire offseason. Because if Garrett shows up in June and everything appears normal, people will breathe easier and chalk the distance up to a veteran managing his schedule. But if Garrett shows up to mandatory minicamp and the tension in that building is visible, if the body language, the conversations, the energy between the star player and the coaching staff tells a different story than the organizational talking points, then we are looking at a situation that has real implications for the 2026 season and beyond. And here is the thing that is genuinely important for every person watching to understand. This is not just about optics. This is not just about drama for drama's sake. A defense with Myles Garrett operating at full commitment and full emotional investment is one of the most terrifying units in the NFL. A defense where Myles Garrett is physically present but emotionally disconnected, where he is going through the motions because his belief in the organization has been shaken, is still good, but it is not the same. Great players do not just bring their bodies to work. They bring their minds and their spirits. And if the Cleveland Browns are asking Myles Garrett to fully invest in a 2026 season that starts with the organization sidelining the quarterback he publicly endorsed in favor of a $46 million veteran who has torn his Achilles twice, that is asking a lot. That is asking Garrett to believe in a direction that conflicts with what he has publicly and privately stated he wants for this team. Let me close this out by bringing it back to Shedeur Sanders himself. Because at the center of everything, at the center of the contract drama and the missing superstar, And the narrative wars and the minicamp rep debates, there is a 23-year-old quarterback who is just trying to win a football job. A young man who was told by 32 NFL franchises that he was not worth a first-round pick, who came to Cleveland as pick 144, who started 7 games as a rookie, competed, made the Pro Bowl. Let me say that again. This 5th-round pick made the PRO Bowl in his rookie season and still came back this offseason to find himself fighting for his starting role against a quarterback who has not played since 2024. And through all of it, Shedeur Sanders has handled it with a quiet, grounded composure that is honestly remarkable to witness. He turned down the streamer in Miami because he had bigger things to focus on. He showed up to rookie minicamp and connected on over 80% of his throws. He is in those coaches' offices, as Myles Garrett himself confirmed, almost every morning, going through plays and schemes, building his understanding of this offense brick by brick. He posted a message about keeping his eyes on God and his focus off the noise. And he went out there with Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston and started building the kind of quarterback-receiver chemistry that wins football games before most of the national media even had the new receivers' names memorized. That is who Shedeur Sanders is. Not the draft slide, not the social media controversies, not the family drama, not the debate about whose name gets called at OTAs. The answer to who Shedeur Sanders is lives in a coach's office in Berea at 7 in the morning, going over film. It lives in a Miami training facility, turning down a streamer because there is work to do. It lives in the voice of Myles Garrett, the franchise cornerstone, the defensive player of the year, the hardest worker in that building for 9 consecutive years, when he looks a national audience in the eye and says, that is the guy we are looking at. We are going to give him his shot. The mandatory minicamp is coming in June. OTAs begin on May 19th. The competition is real. The story is not over. And when those lights finally come on, when the pads go on and the stakes are everything and the whole country is watching, I believe Shedeur Sanders is going to remind every single person who doubted him exactly why Myles Garrett never did. I am Dre Fiver. This is Dre Reports. And if this video gave you something to think about, something you were not getting anywhere else, then I need you to do 3 things right now. First, smash that like button. Not tap it, smash it. This story only reaches the people who need to hear it if you show the algorithm it matters. Second, drop your take in the comments. Do you think Myles Garrett's absence is connected to the Shedeur situation? Do you think the mandatory minicamp in June is going to be a moment of truth for this entire franchise? Tell me what you think, because I read every single one. And third, if you are not subscribed to Dre Reports yet, fix that immediately. Turn the notification bell on, because every time a new chapter of this story breaks, every time the Cleveland Browns give us new information to work with, Dre Fiver is going to be right here with the full picture, no filter, no agenda. Just the truth. Dre Reports. We are out.